Let me ask you something. You ever just feel like you're woefully behind the power curve in life, and no matter what you're doing, you just can't get to the front side of the power curve? Well, if you've ever felt that way, then pay attention to what I'm about to tell you, because I've got some great advice which I think is going to really help you out a lot. Let me be honest with you. I don't have the answers to all of life's questions by a long shot, and I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm just here to share some good advice with you that I picked up over the years, and advice that I think is going to be very helpful. Helpful in the sense that's going to get you to be able to finally start achieving goals, attaining success at a high level, and finally starting to win at the game of life. And if any of that resonates with you and you're interested in listening to it and you haven't clicked me off yet, I think we're off to a pretty good start. You might be saying to yourself, okay, Z, you've got my attention, but why am I listening to you? What makes you credible to talk about these types of things? Well, in fairness, like I just said a second ago, I don't have the answers to all of life's questions. I'm not perfect. I'm not Mr. Wonderful. I certainly can't walk on water nor turn it into wine. As cool as it'd be to do both of those things, particularly the latter, hey, I'm just a mere mortal and I can't do those things, all right? But I have a job that takes me all over the country and to some extent different parts of the world. I've been a lot of places, I've seen a lot of things, and I've met a lot of amazing people and some very successful people at that. Now, I'm the type of guy that's very observant and I pay attention to details and I always look for trends in people and in things. And what I can tell you is this: the amazing and successful people that I've met, there's definitely some trends there, most notably in the areas of mindset, behavior, and habit patterns. There's also those same exact things in some people who are struggling to get to where they want to be. And based upon that, I can tell you what a lot of these little things are. And here's what's crazy about it. It's not any one, two, even three things. It's not even any big thing or things plural in particular. It's small things. It's a lot of them, but they're small things. And if you know what these small things are, and if you do these small things correctly, you can finally get the change that you want, which is going to help you start achieving goals, attaining success, and finally starting to crush it at the game of life and get ahead. So if you're interested, check out the rest of this video, as well as the series that I'm going to put together, which I'm entitling the Winning at Life series, where I'm going to share a lot of these habits with you, and we're going to talk all about that. So let's get started right now by talking about mindsets. First mindset that I want to talk about is the ability to be brutally honest with yourself. And it's something that you have to learn how to do, because if you can't be brutally honest with yourself, you're never going to be able to hold yourself accountable. And if you can't hold yourself accountable, you are never going to be able to accomplish the types of goals that you want to get accomplished. So the thing is this: we are not honest with ourselves as often as we like to think that we are. All right, we actually lie to ourselves every day. And more specifically, it's not as much that we're lying to ourselves. What we're really doing is we're selling ourselves a bill of goods. We're selling ourselves excuses, or we're selling ourselves reasons for a number of different things, right? We're selling ourselves on an excuse why it wasn't our fault, or a reason why we should take an easy wrong instead of a hard right, okay? Doesn't apply to any one thing in particular. There's a lot of things that this applies to. But the thing about it is this: we know when we're doing this, we just ignore it. Why? Because we're great salespeople. We're great salespeople for a very exclusive and limited clientele. And that exclusive and limited clientele is basically ourselves. We're great at selling ourselves these reasons and these excuses. Now, the thing about it is that we sell ourselves these reasons and we sell ourselves these excuses because our ego and our emotions get in the way. We don't want to admit that we did something wrong, that we didn't measure up, or whatever the case might happen to be. So we sell ourselves that bill of goods about why it wasn't our fault. But you know what that's doing? Is it's causing us to stay in our comfort zone. Right? Growth begins when you get outside your comfort zone. So the thing is, you have to get outside that comfort zone a little bit, and you have to get outside that comfort zone by being brutally honest with yourself. You know the difference between in your own mind and in your own heart when you're rationalizing over something in your head that's a legitimate thing that you should think about, and you have to make a decision one way or the other. You also know the difference between when you're rationalizing something and you opt to take the easy way out of things, or do the thing that you shouldn't versus the thing that you should, for whatever the reason behind it might happen to be. But the thing is, there's always that little voice in your subconscious that's trying to tell you that. And I'm no exception to it. There's instances where I do this, and it happens somewhat regularly. I might think one thing, and then 5 minutes later I say to myself, you know what, Z, you're full of shit, and you know you're full of shit. And then I sit there and go, yeah, all right, you got me on that one. I heard what I wanted to hear on that. That's the thing. We ignore that little voice because we'd rather listen to that master salesperson make that sales pitch, sell us the bill of goods, and convince us to do the things that we shouldn't do. But you know what? When we don't do those things, we stay in our comfort zone and we don't start growing. So the big thing that you need to do, and the very first thing, is learn to recognize that and start listening to that little voice when you know you should, okay? So that's the first thing right there, is learning how to master the ability to be brutally honest, which, like I said, being brutally honest is the key to accountability, and if you can't be accountable, you can't achieve goals. second thing that I want to talk about is balancing negative and positive thinking. All right, we tend to think far too much on the negative side of things and nowhere near as much on the positive side of things as we should. Now, look, I'm not saying that there aren't normal, things within the course of your life that you should have concerns over, right? But what I'm talking about here is that we put too many negative thoughts and too many worries and doubts into our mind. And when we do that, we start to basically psych ourselves out. And the reason being is that a negative thought enters your mind about this big, but it eventually gets bigger, and so on and so on. I think you see exactly where I'm going with that. Okay, to the point where it starts a domino effect of other negative thoughts, worries, and concerns that are probably irrational and totally invalid to begin with. And the reason why I just said that, think about a time that you were worried or you were concerned about something. Okay, this may not happen, this may not work out, and it could result in this. All right, did that actually end up materializing? Did what you thought in terms of the consequence of that negative thought, did it materialize at all? Good likelihood it probably didn't. And if it did materialize, did it end up being as severe as you thought that it was going to be? And we both know it probably didn't, right? Usually these things tend, if they materialize at all, tend to be a fraction of a fraction in severity as far as what we think that they can be, right? So the point here is we're spending all this time on this negative thought, and we're not spending really anywhere near enough time, if at all, on thinking about the positives, right? So those negative thoughts, like I said, they start to consume us and they build other negative thoughts that take us off point and we lose our focus. When was the last time when you were trying to achieve a goal that you thought about not necessarily what could go wrong, but maybe what could go right, okay? Instead of failing, how it was gonna look when you win, right? Positive visualization, you should be doing that. Stop and think about what it's going to feel like when you finally win, you achieve victory, you get that goal achieved that you set out to do. Think about not only what that's going to look like, but think about what that's going to feel like here and here, right? When you start doing that, it's going to do a couple of different things. First thing that it's going to do is it's going to be motivating and inspiring. It's going to give you the confidence to keep on going if you hit some resistance, which you're going to need, all right? On principle, that's the reason why you really need to be doing it. But I'll tell you what, I firmly believe that with positive vibes, what you put out into the universe, you do end up getting back. So that being said, you should be thinking more on the positive and less on the negative. Because as we said a second ago, okay, a lot of times these negative thoughts, they're invalid, they're irrational, they either don't materialize or they're a dud in terms of the severity that we thought they were going to be. And we're consuming our mind with that negativity and we're not putting any emphasis on the positive and motivating ourselves and putting good vibes out there into the universe. That's what we need to start doing. Thinking less on the negative, way more on the positive, particularly with positive visualization. The third thing that I want to talk about here is motivation and seriousness of purpose. Now, here's the thing. You have to have motivation to accomplish goals. That goes without saying. But there's different levels of motivation, all right? And I'll break it down to you like this. There's wanting to do something, which is pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. And there's desire. Want and desire, they're similar in spirit, but they're totally different in scope. And when I'm talking about scope, I'm talking about the severity and the seriousness of purpose, okay? When you desire to do something, that's way more than wanting to do something because you have seriousness of purpose to want to get that accomplished. So the thing is this, you not only need to have motivation, you need to have motivation backed up by seriousness of purpose. Stop and think about this for a second. There's plenty of times in your life, I'm sure, where you've gotten a sudden influx of inspiration and motivation to go do something, right? But it's been kind of on a whim. It's been somewhat impulsive. And that doesn't mean that you don't get inspired and that you don't put forth an effort and try to do something. But you know what? At the end of the day, when you try to do whatever that was, you probably ran into some resistance along the way. And when you ran into that resistance, your motivation started to wane out a little bit. And when it did, you probably ended up throwing in the towel. Conversely, there's been times in your life when you've been seriously motivated to do something. And this is what I'm talking about. Motivation backed up with seriousness of purpose. When you have that motivation backed up with seriousness of purpose, you've been really inspired. So when you've hit those obstacles, when you've hit those, those roadblocks, whatever it happens to be, you persevere and you push through them. So the message here that I'm trying to give you is that when you talk about motivation, it needs to be more than having motivation to do something. It needs to be motivation backed up by seriousness of purpose. And not to be extreme, but I'll tell you what, if you're trying to accomplish something, I don't care what it is, if you don't have motivation backed up by seriousness of purpose, don't even bother trying because you're already in a position of disadvantage and you likely have lost before you've even started. You have to have that motivation backed by seriousness of purpose. And that's a pretty straightforward concept. I can't say much more about it than that, but you know the difference between wanting to do something and really wanting to do something. You have to really want something. And when you really want something, know this, you may not get it on your first, second, or even third attempt, But if you're willing to stay the course, if you can keep that motivation, if that motivation is serious enough, you will find a way to win despite whatever setbacks are out there. I'm convinced of that. Now, of the 3 things that we talked about here in this video, these are by far and away not even close to all the mindsets that you need to develop, all right? Effectively, what I've given you here is kind of like the bullet point summary and the 10,000 foot overview of the key things that you need to start thinking about, all right? But it's things of these nature right here. Start thinking about these types of things. And if you're really serious about making these big changes, achieving goals, attaining success, and starting to win at life, you're gonna do the homework on your own, and you're gonna find out what the other things are. But like I said, this should at least give you a good idea of what to start thinking about, what and how you need to start thinking, okay? So we're starting off with this. I think we got a good start. I want you to tune in, watch the rest of the videos in the series. For now, we're gonna bring this one to a close. Good having you in here. Life by Z. Until next time.